In this second part of ghost law, we're going to cover criminal law. And we're going to go back to 1897 to Greenbrier, West Virginia. And there's a woman by the name of Zona Heaster Shue. And Zona just happened to have married a man by the name of Trout Shue. Ladies, never become involved with a man named after fish or footwear. And if it's named after both, haul ass and run like hell. Now, Zona's mother, Mary Heaster, she doesn't like her new son-in-law. In fact, her affectionate nickname for him is Satan. And she knows there's problems. And then one day, her worst nightmare comes to fruition. Zona is found dead at the foot of the stairs, and it appears to be just a household accident. And that's what it's ruled. But she's not so convinced. She believes this was a murder. So she begins to pray. And then for 3 consecutive nights, Zona comes back to her as a ghost. The first night she comes back as a ball of light and tells her information about the crime. And then the next few nights she comes back as a full body apparition and tells her about the crime, the fact that he came home and he was upset because there was no meat prepared for dinner. Well, it's really hard to prep meat for dinner when the son of a bitch is not working and putting meat on the table. So kind of hard to do that. But he gets in an argument, and he begins to choke her violently, snaps her neck, and throws her down the stairs and stages it as an accident. And then she begins to tell her more evidence. And then she disappears. After these ghostly visits, Mary Heaster goes on a crusade. She starts with the prosecutor. She tells him her story, and he just thinks that this is just imaginations from a grieving mother. So he kind of pacifies her and kind of pushes her off. But she's persistent, so much so that he decides to look into it. First person he starts with is the coroner, and he finds out the coroner never actually got to examine the body because Trout was so distraught, he never let the man get close. And the more the prosecutor looks into it, the deeper down the rabbit hole he falls. So much so that he gets a search warrant to exhume the body. Problem is, this is West Virginia in the wintertime, and the ground is frozen. So he has to wait to get the body out. And that's very fortunate for them, because when they pull the body out, it's frozen and perfectly preserved. When they cut that high-collar neck down off the dress, they discover bruising in the shape of fingers around her neck. When they do the autopsy, they check her and they find out her neck is broken between the first and second vertebrae, the only vertebrae in your neck where you can spin your head completely around. And then they start finding more and more evidence matching up what the ghost told her mother. And they charge Trout Shue. They take him to court, and the prosecutor basically tells Mary Heaster, look, if you want justice for your daughter, whatever you do, for God's sake, never bring up this ghost stuff. They're going to use this to discredit you, so please don't. She says, I understand. So she testifies. Then the defense brings it up in cross-examination. They're trying to discredit her, and it backfires on them. It's the only United States case where a ghost was allowed basically to testify by proxy through her mother and convicted her own killer. Trout Shue got life for the murder of Zona Heaster Shue. Now, ironically, the man only spent 3 years in jail. How the hell is that justice? Well, during the trial, it was discovered that the man had 3 wives. The first wife was able to divorce him because he was in jail at the time, I believe for horse thievery, and he was not able to provide for her. So she divorced him, which is bad because he was abusive. She couldn't divorce him for domestic violence, but she could divorce him for not being able to support the family. So she gets away from him. Second wife, well, they had a leaky roof, and Trout's up there roofing the house, and just so happened he was carrying a spare brick in his pocket. Yeah, I was a carpenter for a while. I always carried a spare brick around in my pocket too. And unfortunately, it became dislodged from his pocket, fell off the roof, and struck her in the head as she was walking out the door and killed her. So yes, his second wife had died too. And then, of course, Zona was murdered by him. Now, the man spent 3 years in prison, 1 year for each of the wives he had married, and, well, then he died under mysterious causes inside prison. He basically never got out. So, folks, there is indeed criminal law that states ghosts exist. And with Part 1 and Part 2, we have proven that there is civil law and criminal law in the United States of America that says ghosts exist. And being a former criminal investigator, who the hell am I to argue with the law?